Hello, my Aloha tribe, and welcome to the Aloha Perspective, where you get a little bit of something and a whole lot of everything. Happy Wednesday. It is hump day. I forgot what day it was because, yesterday I was down for the count. So thank you to those of you who checked in on me. It was not mental. It was not mental. I had a gnarly sinus headache on Monday, which kind of led to a lot of nausea and all that stuff. And then it's like, am I fighting something off? So I figured if just in case I didn't feel good on Tuesday, probably a good idea to not do a show, or at least not commit to one. So that's why none yesterday. None yesterday. So but otherwise, great, doing great. But I've been debating today on what to talk about. I had some thoughts rolling through my head last night, and then I thought, should I talk about those? Or should I just save it for another day and just, since Monday was pretty heavy, sort of. Well, not really heavy. It was kind of like an epiphany, but also kind of like, whoa, mind blown. Or should I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Okay. I feel like I still have a headache hangover. And by that, I mean, it still feels like it's just rolling around in my head, but not quite there. So, you know what? Maybe, I don't know. Should I cheat and see what card is on today? Teamwork. Yeah, I'm not sure if I should talk about it. I feel like I should. So since I peaked, I'm going to reshuffle these and we'll do these tomorrow. It is Self-Care Wednesday, so let's just go all in. Okay, oh, see, look, honesty. That's the card that popped up. So yeah, honesty. So we're going to go with that, all right? We're going to sidetrack today and do something other than the affirmators. And we'll go back to the affirmators tomorrow. All right. So, that card honesty keeps coming up. I'm going to stick this back in here somewhere, somewhere we just won't see it coming. All right. Good morning, Hybrid Muddy. How are you today? So yeah. All right. So this is still like Shelley Epiphany crap for you. Well, it's not crap, but just stuff. But yeah, I wanted to cover it because it was kind of something that goes along with Monday. And like I said, yesterday I was just, physically down for the count. I just did not feel well Monday night. So, yeah, I was like, I'm not sure if I'll make it on Tuesday. So here we are. Hump day. So I'm kind of freeballing it here, I'm not really sure how to bring this up because it's nothing bad, but it really, like I said, it really kind of goes with the whole perspective thing on Monday. And by that I mean last night, so I watch a lot of true crime. I'm not gonna lie. I know that there's just something in me that's, every time I watch it, it's just like, why, including TV shows. So Criminal Minds is my new thing. My dad got me hooked on it, and I've never seen it before. I've seen bits and pieces here and there when my mom watched it, when Sissy watched it, or when it just popped on TV. And hi Shamar Moore, but I'm just kind of like, so now I'm watching it. But it they cover a lot of different things, and some of the things they cover a lot is and it's just really sick, the kind of people that exist in this world. But they do cover things like abuse, like physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse. There are things that they cover like PTSD, and of course now there's CPTSD, which is complex post-traumatic stress disorder. So and that they've kind of left the definition. It feels a little open, but from what I've read, CPTSD is like prolonged trauma. So what we would have considered PTSD of a military person coming back after a long stint, in battle, would probably be more known now as CPTSD. Now, don't quote me on that because I'm not sure if that's how they're still labeling it, but CPTSD is, I don't know if it was engineered to be something that would cover people who have struggled with abuse for years, or just trauma for years. And, you know, I mean, battle is not pretty, right? That's trauma. So, you know, and then PTSD would be something like, oh, you're in a car accident or something just quick, you know, something that's not prolonged, something that's kind of, you know, definitely rattles you, maybe emotionally and physically and well, and mentally, but it's just like a kind of one-off event. Now, I'm not dismissing a one-off event. What I'm saying is that I just think, you know, I think that's how they're differentiating it now. But I wanted to talk about the more along the lines of the people who struggle with CPTSD, the complex, you know, post-traumatic stress disorder and the prolonged trauma. So I talked Monday about going from surviving, like victimhood, to surviving to thriving, and how the journey is really that TO, right? The two, right in the middle of surviving to thriving. And it got to the point where I was so used to existing in like this weird mix of victimhood and surviving that I didn't even realize I'd moved into thriving. And now I use victimhood very loosely because I don't want to make anyone sound, you know, like it's a bad thing. For me, it was somewhere I was stuck because I couldn't move through my trauma. I couldn't move through the things that happened to me when I was very young, for years, you know. And so you kind of sit there and you're like, what? But then when you start to heal, all these different emotions start coming up, all these different memories and, you know, memories you had locked away just to protect yourself, to kind of self-preserve. Now, a lot of people will say, oh, you're making it up because you didn't remember it before. Well, a lot of times, you know, the one thing I learned in therapy is that my therapist told me, she's all, if it feels real, it probably is real, you know, or some version of it is real. And so she told me not to dismiss it, but she told me to go in depth and kind of realize, you know, or kind of see, is this the truth of it, or is this how I made it to protect myself? So with my thing, I kind of downplayed how bad it was. But a lot of that was because I didn't understand it, because I was so young. And I had a friend who was actually a sexual therapist, and she was kind of helping me through it before I ended up back in therapy. So she was kind of like free therapy, you know? And we were working through it. And she's another person that told me, she's all like, just go with it. Just, you know, what do you see? And she helped me unlock a lot of things, and which made a lot of other things make sense down the road. So I knew that it was something that had happened, you know, and I knew that it was far worse than I allowed myself to remember, because I needed to protect myself. It was hard enough dealing with what I'd been through from what I could remember versus, you know, what, you know, I ended up really unlocking in those, you know, conversational journeys that my friend and I had. And then when I ended up back in therapy, it was kind of like, whoa, you know, and that's when I really decided that I just had to throw it all into the pot and heal it. Now, here's the thing. When we go from surviving to thriving, that, like I said, that healing journey in the middle is the TO, right? Surviving to thriving. But in the middle, that's where all the work is. That's where the shadow work is, the deep diving is. It's where everything is. It's where, you know, all the pains and everything you've been through. I mean, I wouldn't wish, you know, what happened to me as a child on anybody. I said this the other day. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. But it happened. And, you know, I'm sorry, my lipstick is bugging me. It's like I have uneven lips today, but they're my lips, so. See? I know, right? It's like my right lip, or this side, is kind of just winking at everybody. I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's distracting to me, but it doesn't matter. But anyway, sometimes I feel like these are the things that happen when it's hard to talk about something. You know, you just kind of start finding everything wrong. Like, you know, my eye is lopsided, which it is. Like, one eye is higher than the other, and, you know, now you're all going to notice that. But yeah, these are the weird things that happen, right? When we start talking about stuff that's uncomfortable, when it's a lip wink. I'm telling you, hybrid muddy, it's a lip wink. So anyways, good morning, Allie. I see you popped on. So anyways, this is what I wanted to talk about, okay? Whether you struggle with PTSD, CPTSD, some form of sexual, emotional, or physical abuse, especially when you were growing up, I am a CSA survivor of several years. And like I said, nobody knew. You know, I watch these shows with my dad right now because I'm still here helping him out. And I told him, I said, this is what I meant when I said to you and Mom all the time that you kept me from being a statistic. People will sit there and go, well, how could your parents not know? Because when you're groomed very young, which I was groomed before my parents gave me the speech about if someone's inappropriate, you need to tell us, you know, and I was groomed before that. Yeah. And, you know, by someone we all thought we could trust. So, you know, but they say things, and when I say grooming, there's just a lot more to it. I mean, you could do a whole show on what grooming is. But my point is that nobody knew except me and my perpetrator. And so when those things happen, you know, you start learning different things. You know, you start not seeing yourself the way you would if you didn't grow up with trauma. You start seeing yourself in the mirror as this gross disfigurement of something, of just a bunch of, like a pile of mush that nobody's ever going to want to desire, or anyone's ever going to want. And that's, you know, then you self-hate. Self-love is not even an option. Self-care is not an option, because the only self-care you know is how to keep your secret and how to hide it from the world. You know, and this pertains to anybody who's ever gone through some form of abuse, right? Because we, you know, especially if you're older and say it's domestic abuse, you don't want to be judged. Or if you do say something, someone might judge you, and then you just shut down and don't want to talk about it anymore. So we end up learning how to, you know, if we're lucky, and if a lot of people can afford it, they'll go to therapy and they'll get help. I was fortunate enough to have that opportunity, and I was fortunate enough to be able to do that. And they outsourced me because of my situation the first time back in 2017. And like I said, it was 6 months of, you know, gut-wrenching shit. Seriously. So that being said, all these years later, I talked about Monday how I finally realized I'd hit thriving, yes. And as Allie says, we mask it. It's just like, you know, depression, right? If you tell someone you have depression, they automatically think you're going to whip out a gun and start shooting everybody. No, that's not how it works. I mean, for some people, sadly, yes. But for most of us, we do the fake it till you make it. I mean, come on. Almost everybody I've ever met that has depression knows that phrase, fake it till you make it. Because when we try to say something, we're either judged or we're pitied. And we don't want to be either. We just want people to look at us and go, oh, okay, well, yeah, you know. I mean, you don't sit there and judge a person for having cancer, right? Or judge a person for having an autoimmune disease. Oh, well, actually, let me hold back on that one, because some people do. These invisible illnesses that people can't see, fuck you all for judging it. All right, not you girls on right now, but for anybody that judges it, you need some self-reflection hard, okay? And forgive me for being that in your face, but I have had a lot of bad experiences with poor older sibling and her CRPS and people judging her for it, and because they don't understand it and they can't see it, or they don't know what to look for. When she's turning red, it's not because she's standing in the sun. It's because her body is literally on fire. You know, I mean, not literally, but figuratively on fire from the inside out. All her nerve endings are just sparking. It's like fibro on steroids. So, but yeah, as Hybrid Muddy says, autoimmune diseases get judged a lot. Fibro, CRPS. CRPS used to be known as RSD, but now I think RSD is some kind of mental health thing. So I'm going to have to Google that. But all that aside, whatever you do, don't judge somebody, okay? You don't know what they're going through. I mean, you could see two people sitting next to each other that have cancer. One has a shaved head and one has all their hair. And who are you? You are going to pity the person with no hair, right? But you're going to look at the other person and think, oh, that must be their companion. Because we don't know. The first time Sissy Joe lost her hair, the second time the treatments they had her in, she kept all her hair. You don't know what someone's going through, so don't judge it, all right? And, you know, the people with cancer, I get it. I do the same thing. It's like, but you know what? Instead of pitying him, you know, I just smile and say, hey, how's it going? Because they already know they're struggling. They already know they're going through stuff. They don't want to be reminded of it because they already know. You know, this is the stuff I learned from Sissy Joe. This is the stuff I learned from my mom. You know, when she was dying. They didn't want pity. They just, you know, wanted, yes, they needed extra care. They needed someone to help them out with things. But they just wanted to feel normal for whatever time they had left or until they went into remission. Unfortunately for Mom and Sissy Joe never went back into remission. She did hit remission once, but she fought her cancer for 8 long years. And that was a very aggressive one. And they, you know, she was about to start a clinical trial, and I see now that there are a lot of meds for what she had. And so people do have, you know, this chance now that she didn't have. And I know she would be grateful for that. So yeah, exactly what Sammy says. People need to stop judging, period. Keep your eyes on your own paper. Okay, keep your eyes on your own paper. All right, no looking around at everybody else. No cheating. Okay, because you don't want someone looking at you and judging you. So I'm going to say this again, and I mean nothing by it, but the reason I always bring up my mom when it comes to my mental health is because I think it's the most impactful person when it comes to mental health, because I opened up to her and she shot me down. We don't talk about that. We don't discuss it in public. We know you are stronger than that. I don't want you ending up like, you know, her uncle, my granduncle. I never met him because, you know, he, as the kids would say, unalived himself. But I told her, I said, it's not because of a woman. It's because that was his breaking point. Because nobody talked about it. But she didn't want to talk about it. She didn't like talking about it. And I don't know if it's because, I think about this sometimes, and I've come to the conclusion that it's because I'm an only child and she was afraid. And I think she felt that if she acknowledged it, it was going to magically just, you know, make it worse. But by not acknowledging it, it would just magically go away. It didn't do either. It did not go away, but it got worse for a while because I didn't know how to handle it. And then, as I said, I got help. So fast forward all this time later, last night I was going to sleep. And this is what kind of changed from doing the affirmators today to doing this. I was going to bed last night, and I don't know where it came from, but all of a sudden I was just bombarded with all of these horrible memories of what had happened to me when I was young. You know, and no matter how hard I tried to brush it away for like 10 minutes, it was just a long stream of like a continuous movie of just ick, and ick. And I kept saying, nope. And then finally I was just like, all right, you know what? Just stop. Just stop. Whatever is causing this, just stop. And in that moment, I realized that's what thriving is about. We talked about what thriving is about and what it can and can't be, or what not can't be, but what it can be to different people. Thriving is different for everyone. You know, I mean, I didn't realize I was thriving because it's still been a struggle trying to be here away from home and help my dad. Meanwhile, you know, I'm still not working because I'm here. So there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of stresses going on in the back of my head. And there's a lot of things that I need to take care of that I can't really take care of right now because of where I'm at. But the reason I realized I was thriving is because I'm handling it. I don't always handle it the best. Some days I do need that mental health day, you know, and maybe yesterday, even though it was more of a physical thing and just being really tired from being sick the night before, maybe it was just also a mental health day. Because I'm telling you, when I went down the street to the hot tub, I soaked in there and I was just like, oh, this feels great. I don't want to think about anything anymore for the rest of the day. So, it was just something like that, right? You're just kind of like that moment. But like I said, sorry about my hands, guys. I talk with my hands, but especially when I'm nervous. And I'm feeling very vulnerable right now, and not in a bad way, but because, I am opening up about this stuff, and it's not like it's news, but I'm just going to say this. It was as bad as you can possibly imagine. And if you can't imagine that, then it was worse. And I'm not exaggerating. I'm not making it up. I'm not this, that, or the other. And I really don't need to explain myself to anybody because I was there and I know what happened. But last night, I handled it. I didn't spiral. I didn't fall into a puddle of mess. I turned over in bed and said, you know what? That's not my fault. That wasn't something I made happen. That's something that happened to me. And because of that, I literally turned over and went right to sleep. I didn't dream about it. I didn't focus on it any more than I did, but I didn't dream about it. I didn't think about it until I woke up this morning and I thought maybe I should talk about that, because the one thing we talk about when we get to thriving, the one thing we don't talk about when we get to thriving, when we've moved from surviving to thriving, we don't talk about how these things will come up. We don't talk about how the memories don't go away. How sometimes that feeling that you had of just feeling vulnerable and icky and gross will sometimes resurface. And the same with grieving, like when we lose somebody, when we love somebody that is gone now, these memories come up, these sadness, these moments of sadness come up, these feelings, and, sometimes they can either paralyze us or they might make us laugh, or they're just one of those one-off things where it's like, oh yeah, I'm a little sad right now, but I'm going to keep on moving, and, oh, thank you, Sammy. But I wanted to share that because we don't think about what happens when we're thriving. We don't think about, how these memories are going to pop up. We don't think about how these, icky feelings are going to come up. And if they do, and you're like, but wait, I'm thriving, you are still thriving because you have learned the tools to move through it. Does it mean that I'm always going to move through it as easily as I did yesterday? Absolutely not. But I will tell you this. I think it happened last night because I think it was something that I needed to talk about that I didn't talk about on Monday. I talked about, yay, I'm thriving. Look at me, all these perspectives I'm having. And let me see. Oh, thank you, Allie. I like that. That's exactly it. She says that's what's called turning the corner. Absolutely. Absolutely, And here's the thing about turning corners, right? Everyone's all, yeah, I turned that corner. But when you're out in the real world, right? And you're walking down a sketchy street, you're like, what's around that corner? That's what healing is like. That is absolutely what healing's like. You're like, great, what's around that corner? Look at me trying to peek, right? What's around there? Do I really want to go down there? Well, if you're on your healing journey, you sure shit better. Because that's the only way you're going to heal. You have to get comfortable being uncomfortable in all the truths. Because, and I'm telling you right now, if you're going to do shadow work and you've been through some pretty hairy predicaments in your life, if you can, get therapy. Now, here in the United States, we do have places that, they're kind of social service type places, but it's either pro bono or on a sliding scale. Find those organizations. Mental health organizations will be able to tell you where to find these things, find these people. Because, and don't worry if the kid is like 2 seconds out of school, okay? They went through the work. Going to get your degree in psychology is and even psychotherapy psychiatry. That's no easy feat. It still takes a long time. And basically, I know a lot of people think they're witch doctors. I don't. my therapists, I'm not going to say they saved my life, but they saved me. And by that, I mean, I've had a lot of people in my life who have literally saved my life. Divine intervention, whatever you want to call it. Just the call came at the right time. But they helped me learn how to be me. They helped me uncover all this ick. You know, I'm going to be blunt and very honest with you. Those 6 months of intensive therapy, if somebody asked me to draw it, and if I could actually draw, I would say it was like I peeled off all my skin and jumped into a kiddie pool filled with alcohol. That's how much it hurt. But you know what? Alcohol also heals. I don't mean the kind you drink, guys. I mean the kind you clean the wounds with. It stings like a bitch. But when it heals, God, it's magical. It is so fucking magical. It's not even, I mean, there really is no true words. It's like a unicorn, you know? And we can all be unicorns. But the reason I try so hard to promote the healing and the shadow work is because when we get to the, now this is just my perspective because it might be different for everybody. Shadow work brought me to my inner child. Now for me, that was necessary because it was that little me who was, you know, the CSA survivor. It was the little me hiding in the corner, just, you know, afraid of the light because we don't deserve the light. We don't deserve love. We don't deserve self-love. We don't deserve self-care. We don't deserve self-worth. That's how she felt. And I named her the feral floof. Now, you're like, you named your inner child? I had to. Because that was the only way I could separate myself and say, look, if I were an adult and I were dealing with this child and trying to help her, how would I help her? So I had to give her a name. I had to separate myself from her because that was the only way I could see in. If I was looking at it through her eyes, I'd still probably be in that healing phase because I did. I looked through her eyes for far too long and I was unable to heal. I started this healing journey 11 years ago and I just realized now that I'm in thriving mode. And for no other reason than, to me, thriving is being faced with all these horrors that you've gone through and saying, you know what? That's not my fault. That's on them. And if we start to feel icky or we start to feel gross or we start to feel like we need 15 showers in a row of, you know, nothing but hot water and no cold water, that might happen. Please don't do that because that would burn you. Not good. But just take a moment and look back and see how far you've come. And that's what I did last night. I said, no, I have the tools now to make all this go away. But I wanted to talk about it because the truth of the matter is those memories and those thoughts will creep up and haunt me from time to time. And a lot of times they're going to do that when you were feeling at your lowest, when you were feeling at your most vulnerable, when you were feeling like absolute shit for whatever reason across the board. It could just be a bad day. It could be shitty people around you. It could just be something someone did to you. But that might jog up all those other memories that just try to fill in all those other gaps that say you're a horrible person. And I'm here to tell you, you are not. You are not. You are not the situation that you were put into. You survived that. And my wish for all of you who feel like they're either still stuck in a victim mode or in survival mode, I wish for you to find that thriving. And that thriving, it's healing. I'm probably always going to be on this healing journey because I have to deal with dinged up mental health and because I have to deal with all these memories that are, you know, just ingrained in my brain. You know, unless I can find some magic spell to just make it disappear, they're there. But here's the difference. It's like having it's like taming a wild animal, and that's what I did with the feral floof. I had to tame that wild animal. I had to tame that undeserving, or that child that felt undeserving, that child that felt like, no matter how loved she was by everybody else, she didn't love herself. I mean, I hated myself growing up. I thought I was ugly. I thought I had body dysmorphia out the yin yang. And you know what my mom told me one time when I said, she just caught me, because I'm like, God, I wish I wasn't so ugly. And my mom popped around that corner. She's all, excuse me? And literally, I mean, it was like a comic book, right? Like, excuse me? And I said, I'm all, what? And she's all, I heard you. And she's all, I'm going to tell you right now. And she kind of pulled out the mommy finger. I don't make ugly babies. God bless my mother. Seriously, bless my mother. I love her. I don't make ugly babies. That's what she said to me. And I got tingles. I got heart tingles from that. So let's see. Sammy says, I'm thankful you're talking about this. It's not all rainbows and roses all the time. No, it's not. But we can still survive and thrive. Absolutely. Absolutely. I will tell you this. So here's the thing about shadow work. Okay. I thought shadow work was some mystical, metaphysical act that, somebody made up. Somebody did make it up. But you know who made it up? Carl Jung. Jung. Carl with a C. Okay. He was, Freud was his mentor for a while, but they kind of had differences on how therapy was. And Carl Jung, to this day, a lot of times will be like, oh, that's so Freudian of you. That's so this, that, so that. But when we talk about people who are actually not actually healing, but when we talk about people who have gone through other healing and shadow work, we talk about Carl Jung. Because Carl Jung's approach did help for a lot of the things that a lot of us who have gone through, who have CPTSD or who have gone through these physical things, these either physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, all these things. It has taught us how to go in and to find that wounded child, person, whatever inside, and say, take their hand and say, hey, it's going to be okay because we've made it this far. So Allie says, I wish we could just erase the bad memories sometimes. I do too. But here's the thing about healing and thriving that I've learned. And that's the kind of comment which kind of prompted me to want to do this show today, just kind of off the cuff. I mean, the title of it on Facebook says go with the flow because I didn't know what else to call it. But, we wish we could get rid of these memories. And because we can't, we learn these tools that help us to move through it. And the most important tool I had to teach myself and that I learned through reading and through doing my shadow work is that it's not my fault. I didn't ask for it to happen to me. I didn't want it to happen for as long as it did, but it did. And everything else that entailed into it, I didn't start any of that. It wasn't my fault. And so that was the hardest thing for me to learn because it felt like my fault from time to time. It felt like, why didn't I say something? Why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do that? And it was because I was groomed. And a lot of people say, well, that's just an excuse. No, it's not. Because you know what? When you get older, they switch the verbiage on you. And then they make you kind of pity them. And when you're already stuck and it's already been as long as it had been, you just don't say anything. Even my dad says sometimes, why didn't you just say something? It's like, I know, I don't know. I said, when you're groomed young, you just, I don't know. I really will never have an answer for that. And if I do, I don't know it right now. But I don't know. When I was young, it was because I was afraid all the lies that he said to me, and I spent years hating myself for that. There are choices I made there was a choice I made in my early 20s that I shamed myself for a very long time. And ultimately, I think in the long run, I made the right decision for me at the time. But I shamed myself for that, you know, and oh, you're probably like, what are you talking about? I had an abortion when I was 22 years old, like freshly 22. And there were a lot of circumstances leading up to it. There were a lot of circumstances around it. 8 days later, bing, bang, boom, done. So, I mean, I literally took care of it within like a week and a day. And you're probably like, how? Because I knew. And that's the hardest part, is I felt it. I felt myself get pregnant. I did. I don't know how. It was just like my whole energy just shifted. And there are times that I wonder, you know, what it would be like, because my kid would be 30 years old this year. You know, and I think, geez, would I have been a grandma? Would I have been this? Would I have been that? And I ended up with no kids and single. And I don't know what would have happened. I've had people who have a gift tell me that, you know, it would not have ended well, this, that, and the other. So there are a lot of circumstances, there are a lot of things that did make me feel a little better knowing what I know and having the belief system I have. But I did shame myself for that for a long time, because that was my choice, ultimately. I mean, I feel like I was talked into it. I was very, you know, I was not in touch with my mental health back then. So I was also very, I don't want to say weak, but I don't want to say weak-minded, but I was easily persuaded to do things. And my boyfriend at the time persuaded me. But, you know, a lot of people will say, well, ultimately it was your choice. Yes, it was. But that doesn't mean I didn't carry the guilt. He never did. But I did. I did. And the ironic thing is he went off and had a family and kids, while I carried the bag with this. And that's no shame on that. That made me mad for a long time, I admit. And that was part of my victimhood, I guess. But I got over it, and I realized if I hadn't done all these things, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here talking to even just the one person that might get this. You know, there's one I like to bring up a lot, and it's somebody who watched the show in the early days of the Aloha Perspective, and they struggled and struggled and struggled, and they emailed me, and I had done a thing on shadow work, and they're all, I just want to thank you because, you know, I didn't know what shadow work was, and I started doing it, and I'm making progress. They're married with a kid now. And that's one of the reasons I continue this, is because even though it was one person, it's one person that's blooming now, that's thriving. Just because somebody shared their story to help me heal mine. And so I feel like it's my responsibility, because I love to talk and because I can just come up with this stuff off the top of my head, to do the same. No, I'm not saying you have to go out there and broadcast your life like I do. I open myself to be vulnerable because I'm strong enough to do so now. And even when I wasn't strong enough to do so, I did it because I wanted people to see that they weren't alone in their mental health struggles, that they weren't alone on this journey, that the journey is hard. And yet when you look back, you're like, damn, right? I mean, think about it like climbing a mountain, right? People climb mountains, and, you know, not everybody makes it off of Everest, right? Not everybody makes it to the top. But, I mean, just to get halfway up there, damn. And when you get all the way up there, you're like, whoa. But just think of it as a normal thing, right? You know, maybe you've had some physical struggles, and, you know, one day you're out and you're walking, and you're like, whoa, I just did all that. You know, and that's accomplishment. I mean, yesterday I said I soaked in the hot tub, but I did some pool laps first, and not very successfully, because I didn't realize how physically tired I actually was. It was the first time in about 3 years that I've had all the days at Comic-Con. So, you know, and this time I didn't have sibling with me, so I was just kind of zooming around, you know. So I was pushing my body a little harder than it was used to, and boy, it showed. I was just like, wow, I'm so glad to be relaxing now. But yeah, I'm kind of rambling at this point, but I wanted to come on and I wanted to talk about that stuff, because whether you made choices you regret and they need to be healed, whether things happen to you that were not your fault, but for some reason you carry that with you, and or because you, well, I shouldn't say for some reason, but because you haven't been able to heal it yet or haven't figured out how to heal it yet, you carry these things around with you. You carry this pain around with you. You carry this shame. That's one of the reasons I just wanted to share this. It's really kind of a part 2 from Monday, because, you know, we always talk about thriving, but we never talk about the things that pop up when we're in that mode. We talk about surviving and how hard it is. We talk about the TO, right? Surviving to thriving, and how that's really kind of the nugget of the journey. That's the seed of the journey. You know, surviving is planting that seed when you start that healing process. And the TO is that whole seed just growing into thriving. And when we get to thriving, we're like, yeah, look at me, here I am. And then one day we have those thoughts like I did last night, and you're like, whoa. And then the first thing that came into my head is, well, maybe I'm not thriving. And I said, fuck that, I'm thriving. It just happens. It's like, and this is literally what I said to myself last night before I finally said no. I legit said, fuck that. I'm still thriving. I said, this is just how it goes. These memories don't magically disappear. It'd be great if they did, but they don't. So you need to deal with it. You need to deal with it because you know how. You have the tools. So don't let these memories just, you know, upend you. Take care of it and let it go. This is not who you are anymore. You are not what happened to you anymore. You know, I do have long conversations with myself, I admit, but, you know, I have no shame. But yeah, I mean, that's literally what I said. And then I said, you know what? No, that's not me anymore. And like I said, I turned over and went to sleep. And it didn't, like I said, it didn't stick in my dreams. Like I said, the only reason I woke up thinking about this was because I'm like, this is something that I need to share. Because it's something we don't hear about often. We don't always hear about people after they thrive. They're just kind of like, you know, and I think a lot of times we don't, because I think people think, oh, well, if I share this stuff that happened to me, and, you know, they're thinking, well, you're not thriving. These things are still in your head. No, they're always going to be in your head. When someone dies in your life that you absolutely love, and you just feel like, you know, their presence is missing every day, like Mom and Sissy Joe, you don't just forget about them. And like I said, sometimes the memories come up and, you know, they might make you cry, they might paralyze you, or they might make you laugh, or they might do all three. You never know. You never know. You're welcome, Allie. Oh, thank you, Allie. You're so welcome. I know it kind of feels a little out of left field to talk about this stuff, but, you know, I felt very strongly that it needed to be talked about. I felt very strongly that we have to remind people that even though we're in thriving mode, that doesn't mean that we're not going to have these thoughts. It doesn't mean that these things aren't going to come up and try to hurt us or whack us or do whatever it is trying to do. It doesn't mean we're going to, you know, the tools that we have are going to work every time. Sometimes it might spiral me. But my goal is to not let that happen. I spiral enough over other things, you know, but I'm also learning how to not do that. I'm learning how to really check in with myself every single day to make sure that doesn't happen. You know, not everybody who struggles with, you know, CPTSD has a mental health issue. I am one of those who do. And by that, I mean yes, they might have depression, they might have this, that, or the other. I actually have a chemical imbalance. So this is something that does run in my family on both sides. And it's just, you know, but I'm breaking that generational cycle because I'm handling it and I'm dealing with it. And when people in my family, you know, even if it's just confidentially come up to me and say, hey, you know, I do what I can to help them without saying a word to anyone else, because they know I'm a safe space. I'm a safe space. So yeah. So anyways, thank you, Sammy. She said it really needed to be said. I hope so. I do. I mean, I'm not looking for pity. I'm not looking for sympathy. I'll take high fives and I'll take lots of hugs because I survived all that. My feral floof, when I think about her now, when I talked about her in the beginning, I could still see her sitting in that corner in the dark, just tattered clothes, messy hair, just, lashing out at everybody and anything. Hurt people, hurting people, right? Hurt people, hurt people. And that was me. Now when I think about her, cute little sundress, running around outside, just, woo, just frolicking. And you might think that's weird that that's how I picture my inner child, but I do. I do, and I have, oh, thank you, Allie. Yay, I have a virtual hug coming. Yay. Oh, I got it. It reached me. I received it. Thank you. But no, I know a lot of people might think that's weird, but I have to tell you something. There have been times when I have been outside of my mind, and that part of my brain with my little floof comes in and just kind of sits with me and says, it's going to be okay. And I know it might seem strange to refer to myself as like two separate entities on the inside, but I think it's the part of me that I've healed. And the part of me that's healed from that childhood realizes that as an adult, sometimes these things will pop up and make me struggle. So that's why I share that. I share that, yeah, well, sometimes when I'm just meditating, I can feel my little floof inside, my little inner child going, just sitting there holding my hand saying, it's going to be okay. Look what you did for me. We've gotten this far. We can keep going. And it doesn't always magically make it better, but it plants the seed. It plants the seed and reminds me of the strength that I have inside. My mom was wrong a long time ago. She didn't think I was strong enough, but I had to be strong to survive everything that I've been through. I wish I would have said something to my dad, because he says, why didn't you say something to me? I'm like, well, Mom told me not to, both times, with that and the abortion. Like and I don't know that he would have supported what I did, but he would have been supportive of me, because that's how my dad's always been. And that doesn't mean I don't love my mom. That doesn't mean my mom wasn't good. My mom was great, but my mom had her own stuff going on. And for whatever reason, depression just scared her. And I understand that now. But like I said, the reason I want to bring her up is because a lot of times we will tell someone we're close to, and then we'll shut down because we trust their opinion. If you feel like you need help, go get help. You don't have to leave your house. It's online. If you want, and your if you have a doctor, I in particular belong to an HMO, which is a big HMO, and they kind of encompass everything. So, you can do it online. My therapist, when I was seeing her, said, yeah, if you're ever not feeling well, or you feel like you can't come in, just call, we can do a video. It's like, oh, okay. But, or find places. There's the number 988 in the United States and Canada. If you are part of the LGBTQ community, I highly recommend checking out the Trevor Project, because the Trevor Project, you can either do chat online, you can do texting, or they do have phone lines. If you are in California right now is working with the Trevor Project to educate their 988 operators to work with the LGBT community. So, California's got you covered. If you do live here. So, yeah. I don't have the numbers for other countries, but, you just type up mental health help and whatever country you're in, and a number should pop up. I know the NHS has a hotline. I apologize for not knowing what it is, but I know they have a hotline. And I think a text line as well. So there you go. There you go. And I think the 988 number, I think it's texting or calling. I don't know. I don't want to test it because I don't want to, waste someone's time with me just checking it out, because I want it to be there for everybody. So I can Google that later. But anyways, I have said what I came to say. Allie, Hybrid Money, thanks for popping on. I appreciate you both. I do. And thanks for the input. And thank you for the kind words as well. you know, when I say I make myself vulnerable, it's not like I'm sitting here like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm talking about this. No, my hand gestures, that shows how nervous I was, but not so much nervous in the sense of me talking about it, but just hoping that people understand what I'm trying to say. I decided when I decided to do the Aloha Perspective a long time ago and share my story that this is how it goes, that vulnerability and kind of making yourself, exposing yourself figuratively is a part of that job. And I'm okay with that because, like I said, if sharing my story helps someone else heal theirs, even just one person, then I've done my job. I've done my job because every day it's just about putting love into this world, right? Setting boundaries with people that don't bring good things to us. And, you know, I'm going to finish it with this. So I read something that one of my friends on Facebook posted this morning, and they're all, a $5 steak can cost $7 at a butcher, $10 at a supermarket, $25 at a restaurant, and $125 at a high-end restaurant. And I'm kind of butchering this, you know, no pun intended, because it read a lot differently. But it says the same piece of meat can have different values. And it says if you don't feel like you are being valued, you basically need to check where you're at. You need to see if you're in the wrong place. So if you're not feeling valued, you know, it's okay to walk away. And, you know, we talked about this last week with Allie, and Allie, I'm proud of you. I know you went through your highs and lows with what had happened to you, but I'm proud of you for, you know, just saying, you know what? All right, it happened, and I'm going to find better people to be around. People who appreciate me, people who, you know, who love me and understand me. So, you know, I was talking to my cousin about this too, and she's like, "Are you kidding me?" And I'm like, "Nope." You know, I didn't mention names, Allie. I didn't mention names, but I did. I said, "Yeah." I'm all like, "They totally blah blah blah," and she's all like, "Oh," she's all, "Hell no." You know, my cousin doesn't swear a lot, but she's like, "Hell no." And I'm just like, yeah, I'm all, fuck that. So I'm a bad influence on my younger cousins. But hey, we're all adults, all right? I'm in my 50s. I ain't apologizing for squat. Yeah, we do have to find our people. I am sad that a lot of my people are far away. Hi, Sammy. Hi, Allie and Paula, way out there. And, you know, other people I know from this one particular group I belong to, which both of them are in. But still, my point is I'm sad that a lot of my people are far away. But I do have good people around me. And I'm grateful for that. And that's what we all need. The good people will help you thrive. And they will be there when you were in your victimhood. They will be there when you are surviving. And they will be there on that journey from surviving to thriving. Those are your people. Those are the people who, even when they don't understand, or maybe you might have a tiff, this or that or the other, but you all still come back feeling all kumbaya. Those are your people. All right. And don't be afraid to set boundaries. So I hope everybody has a wonderful, wonderful day. Thank you so much for popping on. It was Self-Care Wednesday, and that's one of the other reasons I decided to share today instead of tomorrow, because knowing that, you know, things still happen even in thriving mode is very, very important. Okay, just learn the tools, gain the tools, and use the tools when those moments pop up. So have a great day, everybody. Thank you again, Allie and Sammy, for popping on. Love you too, girl. Love you too. And yeah, I appreciate it. Again, the kind words. And I'll be back here tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. Pacific time on Facebook Live. All lives are public. Anybody can watch under Shelly Marie Lucas. And you can find me across the social media board as well. So thank you again, ladies, and have a wonderful, wonderful day, everyone.